Hey, hello and welcome to another episode of CP 2049, a solid state society. Tonight with us we have the full gang, Ghost playing Trauma, Matt playing Chiako, Tet playing Hiroyuki, Rogue playing Machine, and Slip playing Kumiko. Tonight's session brings a lot of stories together. I will only recap one part of the story so that the other half is a surprise for everyone. When we left Kumiko, Hiro, and Trauma, they Trauma was taking care of Miho, Kumiko's aide, who had been wounded in the attack by Watanabe forces on the Lotus Blossom Club. While Trauma was taking care of her, Hiro and Kumiko were at the container in the warehouse, at which point the technician had just opened it and stood in front of the container with his mouth wide open. As they both approached the container and saw its contents, they were awe-stricken. In front of them was a perfect exoskeleton of a human. It was made of some sort of alloy, every bone within the skeleton perfect. The skeleton itself wrapped in some sort of material that shone like a skin but was pale. Um, Especially the what drew their attention was the head of the exoskeleton. It seemed to be reinforced by a metal different from the bones, thinner, more durable, and seemed much more stronger. All over the exoskeleton, there were markings that made it uh, uh, not seem sorry that uh, set its origin from a Watanabe corporate R&D facility. At this point, when they are both standing there speculating um, the meaning of this, how the exoskeleton actually works, what is the purpose that Watanabe built it for, when the technician gets a call on his phone, embarrassingly, he picks it up knowing that he should not have had his comm pads on. And it's a call for actually Kumiko. The voice on the phone instructs her and her associate Hiro to make their way up into a control room that's part of the warehouse. There, they will meet someone and get to understand the reason behind all that's happened to them and all that's happening in Icarus. When they make their way there, the monitors all switch away from the standard control room programming to a void filled with a orb that looks like a golden chrysalis that's continually throbbing. It's the entity that's been tracking the group for quite some time now. And therein it explains its true purpose. It explains why it has engaged in its activities to not only hound, but in many ways mold the paths taken by our heroes or villains, whichever way you want to look at them. It wants something very specific. It wants to reunite with its other half. The entity is one half of an AI brain, the calculating, planning half. It turns out it was built by Kumiko's father. The other half that it wants to join with, merge with, is the creative aspect. And that part was built by Hiroyuki and Chiako's father. The brothers, when they were building these cores, did not realize the full potential until it was too late. And even then, it was Hiro and Chiako's father who understood that merging the two cores would create a truly unbreaked AI let loose upon cyberspace and on this world. Hiro's father took some steps to lock away the core in a way that the other half, the entity that's been hounding our group, could not get to. And then he made his way to Icarus to talk to his brother, Kumiko's father, and set things straight between them, fix their estrangeness, and maybe heal some old wounds. The younger brother, he took advantage of this rift, had both of the older brothers killed, and took over Takeda, and ever since has been ruling it as his own private company. The entity makes an offer to Kumiko. It will help Kumiko regain Takeda, give her the controlling rights to the company, and if she would like it, though she feels she doesn't have much choice in the matter, guide her and her company to greatness. For Hero, on the other hand, the entity shows him images of Yin and Machine being captured, images of Yin and Machine being potentially tortured. The entity gives Hero just a simple choice. His sister lives if he cooperates and helps it, else he'll find her in pieces all over the planet. Hero says he'll only help once he's reunited with the sister, to which the entity agrees and says in 24 hours she and Machine will be in Icarus and he can meet her then. The entity also agrees to help Kumiko and her group hide themselves among Icarus so that the Takeda nor the Watanabe Corp assets can find them. It even goes as far to show a act of partnership. South Docks, where the warehouse is located, is swarming with Watanabe forces looking for the warehouse. The Daybreak Syndicate lays traps and executes all of the Watanabe forces, clearing the path for Hiro and Kumiko to leave the warehouse. Hiro makes his way to the Icarus airport waiting for his sister. Kumiko makes her way back to the clinic where Miho is being treated by trauma. While all this is happening, unknown to uh, either of Kumiko or Hiro, the entity contacts Trauma and makes him an offer. His daughter Clarissa may not return as herself into this world, but the tech that the entity has been able to steal from Watanabe would allow Clarissa's brain to interface with a body that can, in some ways, bring her back into the physical world. She would have a chance at a new life. Parts of her may be lost, but there are still lots of her that could still survive and enjoy the life of a living creature. Trauma is not so sure about the offer and makes no deals just yet. The entity, not wanting to push the matter since it is sensitive, tells him to take his time to think about it, but time is always limited. Trauma and Kumiko have a discussion about children and the duties that a parent would have to take care of the children. Kumiko says she will do whatever she can once she takes over Takeda to help Trauma. Trauma mulls it over, but knows that the days coming ahead, it's not going to be easy to keep his daughter away from the machinations of this entity. And that's where that session ended, with Trauma and Kumiko thinking about the future and what it holds for them and the people they care about. Yang waiting for his sister, who he left behind in Japan, not knowing her true fate. And then somewhere over Icarus, a plane landing and two beings getting off and making their way to the shanty town that borders the Stacks and Sector 6. And tonight we'll pick up the session from there. We'll start with Kumiko, who has relocated herself from Trauma's apartment to the Untitled. And go ahead, Kumiko.
So, is this the Untitled where we are right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would have been told about the location of this place by Hero or Yang back then. This was the place where the cohesion of the group was tested when a certain hacker chose to go solo and leave his compatriots behind. This is where the software was lost for a period of time before it was regained. Looking at your notes, you realize that this place has a Faraday cage built around it. No electronic signals in, no electronic signals out.
After Kumiko realizes this, she scolds herself for a few minutes for overlooking this. It would have been something that she could have used earlier, but so much has been going on, it's hard to process all the information that she actually has. When she left the clinic, she made a few stops, picking up bags of credits that she had stashed in the city. She also purchases a near duffel bag full of burner phones. When she reaches the Untitled, she tries to contact a few of the gang members. She thinks she might know where they'll be hanging out, and she does manage to get hold of one. And she makes an appointment to meet him here at the Untitled as soon as he can get here. Well, and she also sends a message to Hero and to Trauma to meet here at the Untitled as soon as they are able. She'll be waiting. As Kumiko waits here, she sits at a table in the shadows. She knows that there's technically a Faraday cage in this place, that no information can go in or out, but she can't stop herself from being paranoid about observation. She writes feverishly on 2 pieces of paper at the table, leaning over them, looking around suspiciously, making sure no one is trying to see what she's doing. On 1 piece of paper, she writes a series of words. They seem random. Each word is numbered. She then meticulously copies these words and numbers onto a second sheet of paper. She tries to work fast because she won't be able to get a message from anyone while she's inside the Untitled, but she wants to get this done before the Dragon Gang member reaches here. She hopes that he's going to be reliable. From what she remembers, he's smart and loyal, and that's what she needs most at this time. With every word and action under scrutiny, meeting at the Untitled is the best hope she has for private word and secret instructions. Hero, always rash, might believe that Kumiko would bow to the whim of this entity for the promise of power and the unspoken threat that hangs over all their heads, but this is not so. The lure of having Takeda Corp in her grasp so close is a powerful enticement. She has no doubt that this entity can provide just what it proposes it can. But what's to prevent it from hedging its bets, or eliminating its servants once it gets what it wants? Kumiko, once named Atsuko Takeda, hadn't lived this long or gotten this far by trusting easily. Leverage, insurance, advantage. Time to get just a little of that back. Then, perhaps, she could trust this intelligence. A little bit, because any intelligence can be trusted to act in its own best interest. She sips water on the table and she makes a face with its mineral tang. Icarus One isn't known for high-quality tap water. A glass of sake would have been just the thing to steady her, but no. Such comforts are out of the question for the moment. Too much at stake to indulge. Too many people, some of them precious to her, were relying on her to keep them safe and alive. Instead, she nibbles at a few dry bites of peanuts and pretzels, all that she can stomach. So much has happened and so quickly in the past 24 hours. Hiro, not entirely unexpectedly, had declared his independence from her and openly rejected true Adicat. Despite the anguish she had felt anticipating that confrontation and that loss. And now Kumiko finds herself oddly at peace with it. Rather than having her attention and concern divided between Hiro, Miho, and her legacy, she can let go a bit while Hiro navigates his own course. She hopes he won't die foolishly in his quest to walk in this delusional path of light he seeks. Perhaps his sister can keep him grounded, but ultimately his destiny is now in his own hands. And the role he would play in Kumiko's future, well, that would also be determined by his actions. Chiako. Unpredictable. Kumiko was content with the agreement she and Hiro had made with regard to control of Takeda Corp, but Chio might decide she was somehow qualified to manage the Megacorp herself. That was concerning, but not something to focus on at the moment. But trauma. His daughter having a role to play in this drama, that had come as a complete surprise to them all. Some part of Kumiko wanted to scream at him to take this chance to have his daughter back, no matter the cost. To not let her slip through his fingers, as she had done with her own daughter. But it's not my daughter, she reminds herself. I'll keep my promises to him, but it is my family and their future that I must think of now. Kumiko finally finishes copying the words onto both sets of paper. She folds them up into quarters, and she stands up and walks outside the Untitled to wait for the gang member to arrive.
The message reaches the gang member and he immediately departs. About 15 to 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour passes, where you're waiting for the gang member outside the Untitled, and eventually you see him approach the bar. You're on the outside of the bar, correct?
She's just waiting to catch his eye, and then she would gesture him inside.
Okay. So you do catch his eye, and you gesture him in. You take your seat again, and he starts making his way to where you sit.
All right, let's give this fellow a name so that we can... I think that'll make this go more smoothly. What shall we call this fellow?
Tadakatsu.
Let's call him Hikaru.
Hikaru?
Yes.
Okay. She sits down at the table, and as Hikaru approaches, she gives him a nod and gestures to the seat next to her.
He looks at you, bows, hesitates a bit, but seeing that you are insistent on him taking a seat, he will gingerly slide into a seat, not relaxing back, sitting on the edge, palms on the table, looking at you intently. Yes.
Hikaru, I was so pleased that I was able to reach you. You may not know this, but I have had my eye on you for quite some time.
He looks down. Thank you for believing in me, even when I have failed you.
I know that you would not fail me again, Hikaru. I see something in you that I've always seen that you have the potential to rise in the ranks. And now I think is going to be your opportunity to prove that to me. Are you up to this challenge?
I am. I will not fail again.
Good. There are some things you need to know. There are many things you do not need to know. But the first thing that you need to understand is that electronic communication is not reliable right now.
Very well. Do you wish me to destroy my compad?
No. Unfortunately, it's not practical to communicate all the time like this in person, and there will be times where we need to get the word out to everyone that we can find as quickly as possible. She pulls out the duffel bag and she opens it up and indicates the different burner phones. I want you to locate everyone you can. Get them one of these so that I can reach them at a moment's notice. However, as I said, certain modes of communication may be compromised. There needs to be a way for you to distinguish orders that come from me from false orders. And so I've given this some thought.
I am listening.
Any order that comes from me will include a closing on it. Dragons never die. Now, when you hand out these phones, I want you to show each person this. And she pulls out a piece of paper that basically just explains, disregard any message that does not include this closing on it. Show it to them. Show it to them out of sight of any electronic device, no security cameras. Make sure all compads are that can have visual capabilities are not able to view this. It needs to be something that only their physical eyes can see, and then put it away until you talk to the next person. I don't want any auditory, no verbal discussion of this, but they need to understand this instruction.
Very well. If a message comes from you with the closing of dragons never die, then it is you who have sent it.
That's right. And there shouldn't be a whole lot of communication. If there's something important or detailed, I will arrange for a meeting via this. But if we need to do something suddenly that requires everyone to meet, then it will include this. Now, I have something very important. There is, what's the name of the Dragon Gang member that's at the warehouse?
Hold on. I had it down somewhere. I make a note. Oh, shit.
It doesn't matter, I guess.
Yep,
She'll call him by name and say he's been promoted. He's currently at a warehouse guarding something valuable. But I need to get certain things to him, some food, some bedding, and some very specific instructions. And she hands over one of the folded sheets of paper and says, get this to him. I also need him to get a small amount of explosive. Something that can be manually triggered.
I am a little confused. Do you want him to leave his post at the warehouse and look for these explosives?
No, I want you to acquire these. Is it within
Yes.
your ability to acquire?
It will be within my ability to acquire it tonight.
Good. I want him to have it. So she hands him these instructions, which is kind of a more complicated system of communicating. So basically,
That's
if
fine.
he, yeah,
We can discuss it offline, so let's keep that as a surprise.
yeah, it's basically to ensure that he can't get fake communications from Kumiko. So we can talk
Sure.
about that offline.
Perfect. He looks at the sheets of paper. He has a backpack on his bag. He leaves it there. He's wearing a coat. He unzips the coat, and you can see there are a few like hidden pockets. He takes the sheets of paper, neatly folds them, and places them in the secret pockets. Zips up his jacket, pulls off his backpack, takes the contents of the duffel bag, empties them into his backpack, leaves the duffel bag where he is, puts his backpack on. Is Miho all right? We were trying to protect her when we were attacked at the club. I lost sight of her, and I'm not sure if she got out.
She got out, and she is alive.
Ah,
And I expect her to recover fully. And just so you know, if there's one person that you can trust to give instructions that, as if it came from my mouth, it is her.
very well.
However, I think she will be recovering for some time. I think we will need to get someone to the clinic where she is recovering to watch over her.
I know someone that will watch over closely. She would rather die than let anything happen to Miho. This would give her a chance to redeem her name.
She raises an eyebrow. Who is this?
Tanya, she joined our gang no more than a year ago. She is about Miho's age and follows Miho everywhere. I wouldn't call it a friendship, but Tanya does care about what happens to Miho. She was distraught that she lost sight of her at the club, and she has been searching Icarus for Miho. I will let her know where she is, and she will take care of it.
Good. That sounds like the perfect person. Give her one of these. And she actually marks it, a specific one, so that if I need to reach out to her, I know exactly how.
Very well. She'll be the first one I contact and have Miho protected.
Okay, she'll give Hikaru directions to that clinic. If Miho takes a turn for the worse, or if there is any concern about this whatsoever, have her take her to the hospital and contact me. But as long as she remains stable, I think the clinic is the safest place for her.
Very well.
If you need to have a detailed private conversation, I suggest that you bring the men here to the Untitled.
And he kind of looks around the place. Okay, I shall do that.
That's all that I have for you. Is there any other news or concerns that I may not have been made aware of?
I am not sure what to make of it. I was not going to say anything because before I came here and you spoke to me, it did not seem much. I do not understand, and nor do I wish to understand the logic behind what you have told me, but I will follow it to the T. But it brings something else that I have observed and my men have observed. After the attack at the club, I had few of them stay back, hide in the shadows, and keep an eye on it. After the people who attacked us left, two individuals arrived. They were dressed very differently from what I have seen in Icarus. They were corporate, but not quite corporate. They were wearing tech, wearing it. They had nightshades on, and it seemed that these nightshades were some sort of heads-up display from what my men could make out. They wore very similar clothing, almost, but not quite, government issue. They walked in to the burning or burnt down establishment with the demeanor and the air of someone unaccountable. They looked around, took some pictures, and then they left. What was interesting was when this happened, the network coverage at the club and in a 4-block radius all went down.
Kumiko sits there in silence, listening to this account. Did any of the observers happen to get a picture of these men?
He nods. He reaches into his pocket and shows you the picture from on his compad. Give me a moment. Do you see it?
Yeah.
The two individuals wore the same kind of clothing, looked similar, but not quite. They walked around and then they left. And as soon as they left the area, the network coverage came back right up.
I'm assuming Kumiko doesn't recognize that person.
No, it's no one you ever seen.
And there's nothing about them that she finds recognizable.
Give me a int plus no. Nothing stands out to you from the picture. Like Hikaru said, the attire does seem like government, but not quite. You've seen, the government types walk in and out of the Lotus Blossom. They have a certain way of dressing. These individuals, similar, but not quite.
When you leave here, send me that picture.
Very well.
Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I rely on men like you to use your eyes and your brains on my behalf. I can't be everywhere at once. Never hesitate to bring something like this up.
I will. In the future, I will.
Very well. I think that we need to get someone over to Miho as soon as possible. So I am going to dismiss you unless you have any questions about your instructions.
None. He gets up, pushes the chair back, bows deeply, and heads out into the night.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
Before he leaves the door. Hikuro.
Yes.
To clarify, Hiro is no longer with True Etiquette. He isn't an enemy, but he doesn't give orders. Do you understand?
You can see his lips move, jaw tighten. Yes. We do not follow Hiro anymore.
Good. Make sure the men understand that as well.
I will make sure they do.
Goodbye, Hikuro.
And he bows again, heads out the door, and into Icarus to set your will in motion. And Kumiko sits back, thinking about the new information she has received. And with that, the camera zooms out, flies over Icarus to the Icarus airport, where in a lounge, Yang sits by himself with a bottle of sake and a porcelain cup. Go ahead.
Yang is seated at the lounge. He's found one of the quieter spots in the location. A corner where the lights aren't so bright, where the commotion is not so loud. He has a bottle of the finest sake here. His cup is full, but he's barely touched it. He feels a odd sensation which has not really been there since he returned from Japan. When he came back, he was full of purpose. He was hot around the neck, angry, emboldened in a different way for his future and the future of his family that was stolen from them. But now he has a creep of doubt that has come in. He was weakened, he noticed. This thing, the pictures he showed of Yin and even Machine being tortured, being compromised, it made him feel something that was not something he usually felt. He was worried, sad, troubled. Those were things he pushed down. Push it down, hero, he remembered. Always being told from his father and then Kumiko. And now it was to his throat, rising on the top of a wave, crashing against him. It would have been so much easier if he didn't feel this way. He would have walked down and he would have cut that abomination's head off. He would have snuck out of that warehouse or killed the men trying to keep him in. He wanted no master. What has he done? He's traded one master for now another master. That is not the way. That is not his path forward. To cast off these duties, these desires of wealth and power and even vengeance. He knew he must have some of these things just to protect his family, but It was not his end goal to rule Takeda, he cared not. To have power over others, he needed it not. He wanted it not. He wanted peace. Peace, not necessarily physical peace, but inner peace. To not struggle. To not fight with himself each day, each morning, each night before he went to bed. Before dreams troubled his mind. For a few days they had eased, and he dreamt pleasant dreams for the first time in as long as he could remember. But now back here in Icarus, these feelings returned. They nagged at him, they pulled him back, they tore him asunder, pulling one way and the other at the same time. He knew when this was all said and done, if he was still alive, this place he could not stay. It was a vice upon a soul, an anchor weighing you down into the ocean, where you would drown. He needed the open skies, the simple life, where he would not be troubled, where he could find solace in the simple things. He thought into the distant future, knowing that he must do what he must do to bring this to be. But it wasn't just him. He needed it for those he cared about. He would offer it to Kumiko, but knew that she did not want it. He pitied her, in truth. She would fight to the very end to have something that she's never experienced, that she aspires to because her father aspired to it. And it got him death. If it was him, he would liquidate Takeda immediately. It was not worth it. The fight to control Takeda, but the fight to kill his uncle for the safety of he and his sister and whatever progeny they might sire. Even Kumiko. They all deserved it. He would push forward, he would bleed, he would die if he had to see it done. But his anger had washed away that day that he saw that tree. And the rain on his face and in his hair. He knew a longing now. He had wanted to be in that very spot forever, and he had to come back here to this neon hell. He took a very small drink of his sake. Sighing heavily, wondering when the next flight from Japan came in, he looked at his compad to see and look at the times, hoping that his sister Chiako would be on it. He worried now. His anger was just below the surface, but more than that, it was outweighed by the fear that something had happened to her, a fear that now that they had been reunited at last in a meaningful way, not forced together by circumstances or necessity, but now they were brother and sister. At least he thought so. And now she was in peril and torn from him, and he did not know if he could have any more family torn from him. Even Kumiko the lost stung. He did not know what it was to be alone. Not really. Even for all her misdeeds and faults, she stood by his side. What ulterior motive she had in doing so, it didn't really matter. And so he wondered if he would be alone once more. It could be that way when it was all done, regardless of how successful he was. He took another drink. He looked at his compad. He waited in silence, pondering these things and the new emotions that seemed to be attacking his very mind and soul. Even the dim lights around him blurred his eyes, and the bright lights of the monitors and the LEDs in the distance almost blinded him. He hated this place. It was everything he despised. Everything was fake. Everything was man-made. Everything was a lie. Even the air he breathed smelt stale, smelt poisoned. He thought back weeks ago to when he got that call from Chiako. Standing on the balcony of Kumiko in his flat, sweat on his brow, looking down into the masses of lights and people. And then he saw his compad light up. He doesn't remember why he did not delete that number. But he hadn't. And he saw his sister's name pop up. And he answered. He doesn't know why he did that either. And here he was. He had come full circle. He was alone. He hoped that it was not for long, and that his sister was well. If not, he would become the Oni. He would strike out, but for a different purpose, but with no less fever. He knew that. He might die trying, but he would burn this place to the ground. He would destroy anything, anyone, alive, in flesh or machine. It did not matter. He took a larger drink. He looked at his compad. He waited, impatiently now. He had a very difficult time managing his emotions. His anger that he knew for so very long wanted to come back so very easily. It wanted him. It needed him as a vessel. He must find balance. He breathed deeply and thought of the lotus blossom tree to give him calm. And he sat there until he would see his sister again, or that next plane came. And that's it.
As Hiro waits, the seconds pass to minutes, the minutes pass to hours. Eventually, what seems like ages, he gets a message on his compad. Chiako machine in Icarus, located at the safe house, coordinates, and in it are latitude, longitude coordinates of the safe house. You can meet them there. As Hiro looks at the compad and decides his next steps.
Do I know who it's from? The message?
There doesn't seem to be a sign off, but the fact that he used the word Chiako and machine would mean that it's the people you are in touch with.
Okay. Yang immediately stands up, already paying for the bottle. He leaves it there on the table and just walks out. He will hail the first car that he can find to take him directly to those coordinates, not waiting, not hesitating.
As Yang gets into the car and heads to the location, the shanty town that borders the stacks in Sector 6, the camera zooms out of this location in Icarus, flies quickly over to Icarus General, where Trauma sits by the bed of his daughter. The biosign monitors beeping. Go ahead, Trauma.
Trauma sits with his daughter, thinking this may be the last time he sees her if things go poorly. Thinking of all the terrible outcomes of if he doesn't return, her just being in a coma, waking up, or being put in that machine, whatever it is. It all just seems horrible. So he realizes he has to succeed. But more so, he realizes that he has to be prepared. People have been slitting each other's throats after they shake hands for decades, centuries, millennium. He doesn't know who's going to put the knife in his back. Kumiko seems reliable enough. But things could change. She was also hungry for power. He doesn't know what she might be willing to do. He sits there looking at his daughter, 7 years old, not having really experienced much life at all. He pulls out his compad and looks through the contacts. Goes over an old comrade in arms, Sarge. Last they spoke didn't part on the best of terms, but he figures it's worth a shot. He dials.
The phone rings for a bit, eventually gets picked up. Yeah. And in the background, you can hear the familiar beats of a strip club. What do you want?
I got a job for you.
Like the last time? Losing my legs didn't seem enough for you, did it? Or losing Bod?
It wasn't the best job last time, no. But I have something better.
You know where to find me. I will listen, but no promises.
I'll be by.
And without saying a word, he, hangs up.
Trauma That's his compad and looks at his daughter and runs his hand through her hair, past the side of her face, gives her a kiss on the forehead. He gets up, sighs heavily, grabs his bag from the floor, feeling heavier every time he picks it up, and goes to where he knows Sarge is going to be.
Trauma leaves Icarus General with a heavy heart, makes his way out in the cold night and eventually finds the pleasure district and the titty bar that Sarge and the old gang frequent. You get in, you see him at this usual table.
Yeah, Trauma knows he's going to hear it, so he just walks over and sits across from him.
His attention is on the dancer up on the stage. He gives you a sidelong glance. Yeah. You see him in a wheelchair, his legs just, covered with what looks like a blanket. The wheelchair has a small little joystick that allows him to move around.
Trauma looks at it and looks at him. I need some of the old crew for a job if there are any around.
What is the job? No more surprises.
Protecting my kid.
His head kind of twitches. He moves the joystick and turns the wheelchair completely now, ignoring the dancer and looking at you. Your daughter? What has she got to do with any of this?
I know I said I didn't want to keep any surprises from you. If I level with you, you can't tell the crew. Only tell them what they need to know. Because it's going to be worse for them than me.
The crew? There ain't no crew, Trauma. Just me. And my fucking bum legs. No one's gonna work with me anymore. How many do you need for something like this?
Thinks about it. At least 3, 4.
Shit. He kind of looks down, pulls out his compad, sends a message. You look across the bar and you see a familiar face start walking up.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And Kite walks up to the table, walks around Sarge, sits next to him, and is basically giving you the stink eye, the glare, and the killer eye at the same time. Sarge looks at her. Soldier Boy here has new mission for us, Kite. She scoffs. Protect his kid. Her face softens a bit when he says that, and she looks at you. He needs 4. She kind of scratches her chin, looks at you, looks at Sarge. We can get 1 more, not 2. Sarge nods, looks back at you, Trauma. Kite and me. Maybe 1 other guy. Not as good as Bod. That's all you're gonna get.
Name the price.
He pauses. How long is the gig?
Do I have any idea how long we're gonna be in Japan?
No clue.
Open-ended.
$1,000 a day.
Done.
Where is she at?
Icarus General. She's not going to be difficult to watch over. She has a doctor working on her. She's in coma.
What happens if she doesn't make it?
As in, if she dies on the table, or if she dies because you guys failed to watch over her.
If we die, it doesn't matter, does it? What happens to her? No. If she dies on the table.
Well, you're not doctors. You get the money, no matter what.
And what if somebody moves her? Do we stop them?
There's a female doctor who's going to be working on her. Looks to is remembering the name.
Martine Bontemp.
Yep. Dr. Bontemp. If it's her or staff, I'd check with her first. If they need to move her for something, fine. But I don't think she should need to be moved.
Any procedures we need to be aware of? What if they take her in for surgery and she doesn't make it?
Just tell me. And then your job's done.
And what if you don't come back? We leave when the money stops?
I'm gonna make some tapes and put a will together. I'll figure something out. Yeah, you leave when the money stops.
Done. No harm is gonna come to her that we can stop.
Trauma gets up and he takes a puff from his cigarette. I know it ain't worth shit, but I didn't want Paul to die. I'm sorry about what happened to you.
If you see Machine again, punch that fucker out.
And he cracks a bit of a smile and reaches out his hand to shake Sarge's.
He shakes your hand back. Be safe, Trauma.
You do
This doesn't look good from where I'm sitting.
It looks like shit from where I'm gonna be at too. Hopefully it won't be too long.
Kite stands up as you're about to leave, grabs your shoulder, turns you around, just says, "Come back safe."
Trauma looks her down, nods. I will. I always do. Lights up cigarette again. You be safe too.
She nods and walks back into the club. leaving Sarge at the table, who turns around and starts watching the dancer gyrate. As you head out into the night of Icarus, you get a message from Kumiko asking you to come to the Untitled. For a moment you're stumped, and then you remember that's where Neuro left you and Yin hanging.
Trauma looks at it and he actually smiles a bit to himself. Full circle, huh? And he replies, be there in 15.
And as Trauma leaves towards the Untitled, the camera zooms out and flies over to the shitty part of Icarus, to the shanty town that borders the stacks and Sector 6. We see Yang walking along what is not really a river, not really a sewer, just a stream of trash floating over black liquid. As Yang, you walk along these shanty towns, your compad highlights the building you need to enter. You get a second message when you're in the area. Top floor, only room. The building you need to enter is this, the one I just pinged. As you get closer, you see that there is a single stairwell that basically just curves all the way to the top. It's 5 floors tall from the ground up.
Yang approaches his briefcase in hand. His briefcase usually contains his katana and wakizashi. Not trusting anything or anyone currently, he opens it, grabs both, and simply slides them in place at his hip, closing the briefcase and taking it into his left hand. He continues to walk towards the building. Peeking inside at the stairwell, he looks up, trying to catch a glance of anything or anyone there.
Give me a notice plus wisdom.
Okay. Jesus.
You don't notice anyone that is that catches your attention. The stairwell is dirty, and disgusting. There's trash all over.
Yeah, Yang he ignores it. He's single focused and begins to ascend the stairwell.
You ascend the stairwell, each step rickety and shaking, but the stairwell holds. As you pass each level, you hear the blare of television, the smell of shantytown cooking, shit on shit grease, smoke everywhere. You hear children screaming, couples yelling. The very thing that makes this place the asshole of Icarus. Eventually you reach the top floor. There's just a single apartment, if you can call it an apartment, that is, and a door. The door seems to be slightly ajar.
Although this place is repugnant, Yang feels calmer here than he does in the heart of the city. Whereas that's fake, at least this is real. He reaches forward, pushes the door open with his briefcase, out of habit stepping to the side and peering in. not giving his full chest as a target for anyone staying inside with a gun or a sword.
All right. So you open the door with your briefcase, and the door opens with a slight creak. You look into the apartment, you see what looks like a hammock. To the right of you, deeper into the apartment, you see stairs that go up. You hear the floorboards creaking on the upper level. There seems to be some food cartons kind of strewn about, used chopsticks. The place is a dump for sure.
Yang makes his way up into the first floor and looks around, seeing that the conditions are lived in. He wonders.
As you go a little deeper and you look around, you hear the floorboards creak at that level up there.
Yang moves into a corner and cranes his neck, trying to look up into the second floor without giving himself away, trying to see who or what is up there.
You see a singular figure in the shadow. The silhouette is petite, female from what you can make out, but not more. The individual that's up there is just pacing, but not too quickly.
Yang sighs and resolves himself to just simply move up the stairs. He does so slowly, hand on his sword, looking up to see who it is that he might be encountering, hoping that it is his sister.
You make your way up the stairs. About halfway there, you see that there is a hooded figure that is kind of standing near the window and looking out into Icarus, hands at her back, fingers ringing.
He simply walks up into the next floor, stares at the figure expectantly, not understanding exactly why his sister would be dressed like this if it is his sister. He begins to doubt that very fact and puts his hand on the hilt of his sword, wondering if he has walked into some sort of poorly planned ambush.
And the figure turns its head, and you can see it's a small petite figure, and she takes her hands from behind her back, places either on each side of the hood, holds on, and just says, "Hiro, you're here."
He looks long and hard at the figure and, yes? What is this place? How long have you been back?
Not long. Has anything happened? What have you been doing? She pulls kind of at the edge of her hood, not pulling it off, pulling it down more to cover her face a bit. You can see the large sunglasses obscure most of her face as she's not looking directly at you, but at the floor.
Hiroyuki looks a bit confused. We found out what was in the... What is wrong? Are you wearing your mask again?
She shakes her head. No, I wish it was that. It's much worse, Hiro.
What do you mean? He begins to walk forward.
You can see her. Usually before, she is still standing fairly tall even for her stature. And here she's much more scrunched up, shoulders forward, almost hiding herself. And as you approach, she slowly removes the hood, removes the sunglasses. I messed up, Hiro. We messed up.
What does he see when you remove the sunglasses?
And she removes the hood and sunglasses, and she opens her eyes to look at you. You can see the eye that has the scar across it still remains, but the other, it now has one that glows red. Much cybernetics are embedded into her face, marring the, well, beauty she had before. She doesn't meet your gaze, Hiro. She looks down past you. And you can see there's the one eye that's real is slowly turning glassy. It's all fucked up.
He immediately steps forward. His face, his mouth is agape in complete astonishment. He reaches to take your chin and pull your face up so he can get a better look.
She steps back immediately. Don't, please.
What the fuck? Who did this to you? What happened?
She wraps her arms around herself, again trying to become smaller as this cowed stature that she takes now. She just shakes her head. It's the Daybreak Syndicate. They followed Machine. They followed us into Japan, and I was going to get better, Hiro. I swear. And everything was going to work out, but they found us in this giant thing of a man. Clad in cybernetics and flesh, just terrible. I remember everything. She looks down at her hands. You can see she's trembling. Every cut, every slice, everything they did to me, to Dean. It's all here.
Hiro, his face is quivering in rage. His hands are clenched. Where is Machine? Is he alive?
Yes.
The moment you say those words, Yang, you hear footsteps from behind you as Machine is walking up the stairs with what looks like bags of some food that he's picked up. Go ahead, Machine, describe yourself as you would appear to Yang.
Yeah, Machine walks up the steps and realized that Yang was here before, he approached. He could hear them talking upstairs, and so the look on his face is just one of shame, really. And he doesn't really look towards them at all. He just stares at the floor with the two bags. And and nods towards them both, and then starts to walk over and put the bags on the shelves. And you can see he's highly mechanized as well. Everything that they did to him, the torture and stuff like that, must have been pretty horrific. And he puts the bags on the shelf and just leans on the table, staring out the window.
Why did they do this to you? He looks back to his sister.
They did it because I took Niara away from them. This was their punishment.
I see. He begins to pace. He sits his briefcase down. He almost is ignoring everything around him. His arms are behind his back. His eyes are almost closed. They're narrowed so far.
Machine looks away from the window and over towards them both, and this was what they called their mercy.
Mercy, that we're still together. That we are still alive, that we still feel.
That is not mercy.
And you can see she's laying against the wall and she kind of slumps down. And she puts her hands over her knees, bringing them in. There's nothing we can do, Hiro. It's one.
Machine sighs and he says, I wanted so bad to rip the wires out and pick that engineer up and break him in half. He looks over to Yen, and I was worried they had her all chained up and ready to kill her if I didn't comply. Now that God has made itself known, I truly feel like it's watching us all the time. Some AI entity. Might as well be God. I don't know how to reach it or how to stop it. And if I try, I could snap its fingers and simply kill the ones that I've grown to love.
Or worse. It will trap us in an endless cycle of torture and pain forever.
Machine walks over towards Yen at that moment and kind of offers her a smile and pets her face.
She's doesn't smile back. She just looks up at Machine with this defeated look on her face. She looks over to Hiro. I don't know how much you know about what it wants, but once it gets what it wants, its other half, all of the freedom that we have, whether it's us or the people out there, it's going to be gone.
He looks to Yen and then Machine. I know. Do you know if it can track you? in your current
Yes.
state.
It can.
Machine nods and agrees with her and says, shit, I'm worried it's hearing everything we say. If there's some way, maybe some way to bypass that, I'd
Yeah.
like to find out.
She looks to Machine and she nods. There's a place. But she again looks down at her knees and holds them closer. I'm afraid any signs of rebellious behavior is going to get us punished.
What more could it do?
She looks slowly up to Hiro. It could take Machine away. It can download their consciousness into cyberspace and keep the torch up for as long as it's alive. It will keep us alive forever there. Do what it likes. It won't stop. It says it can wait forever. And it will hunt us down and do what it wants if we don't obey.
Machine nods at her and looks over towards Yang, and you can see him. He says, he's like deep in thought for a second, but he says, I think for now we should comply with its orders and go ahead and do what it wants. And he kind of winks at him.
Yang is... He shows no emotion on his face. He doesn't say anything. It's clear that something's stewing inside his head, and the both of you know him well enough to know how he would react to something like this. Have I gotten the request to come to the Untitled yet, Xavier?
Yep. So as Yin was talking to you about these things, your compad chirps and beeps in your coat pocket. You pull it out and you see Kumiko's message requesting you to come to the Untitled.
He looks at it briefly and nods. Come with me.
Where are we going?
We're going to meet Kumiko in trauma, I'm assuming.
Machine doesn't even question. He just goes and starts to grab his stuff.
And gets up from her seat very slowly. And there's a bit of pain that crosses her face as she gets up, making her way over and gathering her own things. I think she still has the family sword, right?
Yep, you have all the equipment you had with you when you were captured.
Okay. And she grabs the family sword and she holds it. She holds the hilt and looks over to... When this is done, I want you to have this. She gestures to the sword on her belt. It was Father's.
He looks down at it briefly. His face, ever since for the last few minutes, has been completely 100% without emotion. He doesn't even respond. He simply turns and nods towards the stairs. Come.
She nods and continues to look down. She moves her way over to Dean. She takes his hand, before moving her way to the stairs.
You noticed when he's getting his stuff, when she offered to hand him the sword, he stopped for a minute and watched, almost like he felt like she was ready to give up. But he doesn't say anything about it. He finishes grabbing his stuff, takes her hand.
Hero.
Eventually,
Yeah, Hero just.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Hero's gonna go out and. I'm assuming they can cover themselves with some sort of like Yin was earlier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd get a ride. Well, my intention is to get a ride to the Untitled.
Yep, sounds good. Yep, you guys gather all your belongings. Yin pulls the mask, the hoodie over her, and wears a nightshades. Machine does the same with the hoodie on his face, over his face, and nightshades. Yang, you get out there first, hail a ride. You have to walk a bit before you can hail a ride. Right behind you is Machine and Yin bringing their equipment along. You jump in the front, the two of them jump in the back. There's a noticeable creak of the suspension of the car when Yin and Machine get into the back. The car makes its way across Icarus, and about 25-30 minutes later, it drops you outside, not yet outside the Untitled. Just give me a minute.
Is it possible? I imagine Machine would probably be even extra cautious, trying to like make sure they're not followed and stuff.
Yeah, so as the car is making its way, you look back and give me a notice plus int in your case.
Nice.
Oh, that's plus wisdom. Actually, sorry.
That's good enough. That's fine. You look back, and as the taxi is weaving its way across Icarus, you see patterns emerge. You feel there are a few cars following you, but then you see that they eventually take either a left or a right. And as you get closer to your destination, no single car or group of cars has stayed with you long enough to seem like they're tailing you. You realize that no one has picked up your scent and no one is following you towards the Untitled.
Cool. Probably don't even need to.
You guys get to the outside, the taxi drops you off, heads out. What is your plan? Do the three of you walk in? Do you call Kumiko out?
No, I would. He nods for the other two to walk inside as he's looking up and down the street, considering something.
Yeah, Machine would go ahead and walk in, his hood pulled low and shade still on.
Ian would take a moment. She'd pause outside of the end, realizing that it was the decision to hunt down Nero. That when we got them into this situation in the first place. And if her face could get any paler than it already was, it would. She puts her right arm, or her right hand on her left arm, rubbing it slightly out of discomfort before making her way inside.
All right. Give me a moment.
Yeah, wonder if that would affect us, that Faraday cage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on. Getting there. You guys walk in. You see that the place is not as crowded as you were here last, Ian. Right opposite the door at the other end of the bar, you see Kumiko, and at her table, you also see Trauma sitting, smoking a cigarette. Kumiko and Trauma, you see two hooded figures walk in to the door, look left and right, then lock eyes with you and start walking towards you. You cannot see their faces or see their any discerning features, but given that they're walking to you and given the silhouette that they're casting, one seems about the size of Yin, but a little off. One seems about the size of Machine, but a little more off. As they're walking towards your table, Yin, Machine, as you walk, Machine, you don't feel any effects on you. You feel your limbs fine, your eye operating. Your eyes can see further into the darkness, can make out all the people sitting in the darkness. It starts targeting them, categorizing them, giving you information about friend versus foe. Yin, the moment you step into the Faraday cage, you attain a sense of peace. The noise of cyberspace that has been ringing in your mind's eye is suddenly winked out. For once since the ambush and the ensuing torture, your mind is at complete peace. Cyberspace is not trying to contact you, and your mind is not trying to contact cyberspace. Outside, Yang, what are your plans?
My phone that I have is registered to me. It's clearly my phone, or is it a burner phone?
I would say you would have both the burner phone and your phone.
Well, his phone got blown up in my
Right,
apartment.
right.
Oh yes, you put it into this box, so yes, you don't have your own phone.
Perfect. He looks down at his phone. He thinks about something for a moment and decides to just stuff it in his pocket. He walks over to the noodle bar and looks down at some cheap napkins. He frowns and calls inside. Do you have a writing utensil?
Yes. Give me a moment, please.
He waits, looking up and down the street for people passing by.
Eventually, this Asian man comes out and hands you what looks like a just old receipts, and also hands you what looks like a old ballpoint pen. Here.
He nods, looks at the pen, somewhat unsure what to do with it for a moment. When he was younger, he practiced calligraphy. He's not an expert pen for certain. He scribbles something down on 2 napkins. He folds them up. And he looks to the man and says, do you have a courier that comes from mail? Or anything like that? Brings supplies, groceries, anything?
I can call one. I can have a courier come to me. Why?
I need something delivered. He pulls out his credit stick and transfers a very hefty sum that would be to the shop.
Oh, okay. For this amount, I would deliver it myself.
Then do it.
Very well. All right. And he kind of walks back, and you see him kind of turn off all his burners and kind of start closing up. Ah, right away. And then he kind of walks out and he starts pulling the shutter down. And he looks at the two napkins. Is there an address on one of
There's
them?
an address on both of them. There are two different addresses. He says, tell them Hiroyuki Takeda sends his regards.
Hi, Hiroyuki Takeda.
He
Very well.
he,
He looks down at the two napkins.
he waves to one of the napkins. Take this one first.
Hi, the one in my left hand. Yes, I will deliver this first. Hiroyuki Takeda sends his regards. And then this. I think I might be able to retire tonight.
I hope so, friend.
Well, I bid you a good night, stranger. And he starts walking kind of speedily into the night of Icarus, heading towards the destination on the left napkin.
Immediately, Yang turns back and walks inside to the Untitled.
All right. As you walk into the Untitled, you see Kumiko sitting at a table exactly opposite to the front door. By her is Trauma smoking a cigarette. Heading towards them are two hooded figures who you know who they are. And they get to the table and stand in front of Kumiko and Trauma. Go ahead,
Kumi-
guys.
Kumiko cocks her head to the side and says, Yin? Machine, I assume?
Yin nods her head. Hello, cousin.
Machine bows his head. He doesn't say anything.
Please sit. I know you've had a long trip. Are you alright? I know Yang was quite worried.
Yin sits down very carefully, very slowly in one of the chairs. And she places both her arms on the table, placing her chin upon them. And she turns her head to look towards Kumiko. No. We're not alright.
Machine sits down slowly and looks towards Trauma and nods to him as well. And it doesn't say anything else, but it's just one word. It's like, brother.
With them sitting this close, can we see that there's something obviously wrong with them?
Yin, Machine.
This close, it's probably, especially with the darkness here, you can see a red light behind the glasses. You can see looks like machinery interwoven with flesh on her face, on her chin, going up the sides of her cheeks from this close. And she keeps the glasses on. You can see as you're looking, Kumiko, she actually pulls the hood further down.
I would say since cybernetics are pretty basic, Kumiko's never really met Machine. I don't know if she would notice anything really highly different, but Trauma probably would for sure, even with the glasses and the hoodie on.
Yeah, Kumiko can't keep from gasping. And she just stares at Yin for a moment. She starts to breathe heavily, and then she slams her fist down on the table. Unfucking acceptable. And she clenches her fist and tries to stop herself from shaking. Just a moment. And she stands up and walks over to the bartender and says, I want to use your back room.
My back room. The bartender kind of steps up.
Your office.
Yang is walking in about this time, and if he could, catches the conversation. He just simply walks over to the bartender and grabs him by his actual beard and just yanks it forward across the bar. Do you have a hearing impediment?
Do you know who I am?
Should I? You are in my establishment. What is it that you want?
Yang slams his face onto the bar.
And Kumiko, playing good cop, kind of just holds out her hand for, let up a little. We just want a private place to meet. You can be compensated. I'm Kumiko, and I keep my word. I don't know if he would have heard of her.
All right. Just give me a minute. Let's call.
He does.
Kumiko looks at him and smirks a little bit. I'm going to miss
He
that.
kind of stands up to his full height. Well, everyone. Last call. Well, not last call. I'm shutting the place down. Fuck off. Fuck off. You. Fuck off. Pay your bill. Fuck off. And you too. And he starts and you see him directing his bouncers to gather all these people and get them to pay up and I'm shutting down. I don't need to hear your shit, fucking hacker. Leave, motherfucker. Now, you. Help him up. He's fucking puking on the floor. Help him up. Take him out. And he starts marshalling the people. 15-20 minutes of commotion as every straggler needs to be physically lifted by his bouncers and shoved out the door. And he looks to his bouncers. All right, you guys. We're done for the night. You can leave. No, I'm fine. Just leave. Yes, leave. And then he looks at you, Kumiko. Compensation. You said something about compensation. You can have the bar for the night. Just lock up when you leave.
I'll leave. And she just reaches in for a cred stick and just passes the ball to him. She thinks is appropriate.
He nods, takes the cred stick, gives you a dirty look. Yang heads out of the bar, closes the door behind him, and then you guys are left alone.
Yin was going to say something to Gabe, kind of remembering him being here when she originally came with Nero and trying to make deals with him for the tech, but of the hostility that Kumiko and Yang showing, she wasn't able to interject. At this point, Yin's pretty small herself. She just makes her way back to the table, sitting back down. And Dean can see she's more relaxed than before. She actually puts her head down on the table, almost lying on it, as she attempts to get comfortable in the chair.
Machine puts a hand on her back and looks over to Trauma, and he takes his hood off and pulls his shades off pretty quickly, and he looks at Trauma for a minute, unsure of what to say.
What the fuck happened to you?
He kind of smiles and says, this is God's mercy, I guess. This AI. It wants to control all of us. He mentioned something about your daughter when I was there, too.
What exactly?
From what I'm thinking. Something about taking her mind and putting it into a machine or a body like this.
Well, if this is his ideal look, no offense, Dean, but fuck God. He passes a cigarette over the machine.
Kumiko looks back and forth between Yin and Machine. She just looks like she's holding back a seething rage. This thing, it said it didn't understand humanity. And now I believe it. If it thinks that this is the way to get compliance, she shakes her head. It doesn't understand what happens when you push people too far.
Yin picks her head up, looks over to Kamiko, taking off her own hoodie and sunglasses and placing them down the table very gently. Unfortunately, sometimes it gets what it wants. And it knows how to make people comply.
Machine nods and looks away from Yin towards Kumiko, kind of over her shoulder, and says, I don't know how to reach it or how to stop it. And I fear every step I take, they're watching us.
I've worried that for quite some time. I don't know why it took me so long to think of this place. She looks around. This place is a Faraday cage. Nothing gets in or out.
Machine nods, and we were wondering if there was some way to war against this thing. Everything that's still left in me that's human screams that I need to fight it.
We will. There's no way I'm letting it have what it wants now. Still, open defiance is probably not the way. It wants us to find its other half. When you let someone know what it is you want, you show them your underbelly.
The only problem with that, you are thinking about it like we can somehow ward it off. And it can wait years, much longer after we're dead. Get new people to try this. It's not like our efforts. Our efforts are going to be in vain, no matter what we do. It will succeed at some point.
But it says that this other half is not like it. This other half may oppose it.
It promised us an eternity of hell if we didn't comply.
Sounds like that's what you've got right now.
Yang is standing in the background, completely not saying anything, not sitting with the group. If Kumiko would notice, she's seen this look very few times. It's one of absolute resolve and anger, rage, things that she probably not necessarily taught him, but nurtured. The old facade of this reformed man seems gone. He says, "The two of you can do one thing, here and now, if you wish it. If this burden is too much for you, you can take your own lives. This is the place to do it. It cannot download your consciousness from here. You will be free. I will not tell you what to do. I will fight this thing. I will destroy it. Or I will die trying.
Machine looks over towards Yang and says, I never really understood that Japanese honorable suicide thing. I had another idea. Back when I was in the Marines, I was going to be part of some cyber soldier program. But Lieutenant Ferris, that shitbag, got me discharged and took the gig. I guess doing it would set you up a career with big-time government agent type shit. I didn't care about that. Anyway, I was thinking maybe if there was some way to use that, enter into cyberspace to fight it. If I could get the information, what they're working on, maybe I could fight the AI from cyberspace.
We know nothing about hacking, the five of us.
Yin holds up a finger, and she slowly reaches to the back of her head, tapping it a few times. I have the code breaker installed inside me now. I am a makeshift hacker now. I've become what Neural was, except it's in my brain.
Machine looks over to Trauma and says, and nods to him. This guy, the AI sent after us, Deus Prime, I think it was called. Fucking Frankenstein's monster. This guy was a beast. He grabbed me and slammed me like I was nothing. I unloaded my combat rifle into his face. He just broke us apart. He's got some soldiers, this AI does.
Do you really think that we can defeat this thing alone? He's just like looking at everyone.
There's a few other things that I know about. I browse the Daybreak Syndicate's database. They've tried to recruit hackers from here before. They've always been turned away, normally. There's also a agency that the AI and Syndicate have been keeping an eye on, called the Turing Enforcement Agency. They're tasked with stopping anyone who's trying to unbreak AI and let it loose. I don't know how we can contact them, but you could try.
When my club was blown up, apparently there were two people that came to investigate. She shows them the picture. I'm assuming that her man sent her the picture after he left.
Mm-hmm. Of course he did.
Yeah, so she shows them. He said that they had the air of someone with authority, someone who answered to no one. If it had been Watanabe, they wouldn't necessarily have sent someone. I suspect that these men are either... What did you call that organization?
And right at that time, Yin, you look at the photo, even though you're cut off from cyberspace, the internal data banks that you stored the information on immediately pattern matches and recognizes the photo that Kumiko shows you. These are the agents.
Yin. She points to the photo and nods. That's one of them. The agents.
I think if we put some thought on it, we could possibly bring them to us.
I've already
They
thought
came
on
to
it,
investigate.
Yang says. He cuts her off, and we do not need to contact them directly. I've already made overtures to two very familiar, powerful groups that certainly will not want this thing loose. Now, if we follow up on these overtures, it doesn't matter. But I've already started the process.
Who the hell created this thing anyway?
Our fathers.
No, that
One half
is
was
wrong, Kumiko. I don't know what my father created, but it was not this.
It was the half that it wants. Hero.
This piece was created by Kumiko's father. Please do not lump my father in with your father in the creation of this abomination.
Kumiko shrugs. The base tech is all the same. Who knows what the other is like? And regardless, I won't be held responsible for my father's sins.
Quick question, Cypher. The information regarding the other half, it's stored at Takeda, right?
Yes.
Okay. And she...
So let's rephrase. What is it that you want to know?
Basically, the information leading to the creative half, it's all stored at Takeda, right?
Yes and no. It is at Takeda, but you're not sure what Takeda. There are insinuations that this is not on Icarus. Based on what you have read, it is most likely, as per your knowledge, somewhere in Japan. There's a part of you that also remembers a conversation that let's say, no, you wouldn't know this, but Yang would. Something that was there in his father's diary.
Oh, I wanted to ask something too, real quick. If, like, how neurologically disconnected do we feel? Like, really, is our feelings and emotions really dampened a lot by the changes that have been made?
So, neurologically, you're still fully intact. It is not as invasive as to impair you. You have all your physical attributes and qualities. You have just been enhanced, right? So, the eye basically gives you, in some ways, dark sight. Sorry, but right?
Yeah. That's
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I'm just using a D&D term here. So it gives you dark sight, right? Your hand, in essence, is generating some sort of force shield, and you kind of have an inkling that some of this is high-grade military tech as well, right? Kumiko's implants are also high grade. It doesn't diminish her mental faculty. Not Kumiko, sorry. Chiako's, Yin's. It doesn't defeat any of her mental faculties. In essence, it actually enhances her ability to notice stuff, collate data, look at pattern recognitions, access cyberspace. All of those have been enhanced.
just like emotionally, we're still
The
same.
Yes. Emotionally, both of you are same, but the caveat is, Yin may be a little more unstable given the fact that she saw you being rebuilt from scratch,
Yeah.
and you might be reeling from the fact that
I failed to protect you.
yes, to see her the way she is now, right? So those are more like psychological traumas, not so much that it's it'll give you pause before acting completely like exploding. But if you want to explode, nothing's stopping you from doing it. The physical world is still something that the entity cannot transcend. It's only through the Daybreak Syndicate agents and people like Dois Prime can it actually enforce its will on the physical world.
Cool. Cool, thank you. I was just wondering, this is because it might affect what I want to say to Trauma here. All right.
Perfect.
So yeah, Machine turns to Trauma and kind of in a lower voice, more centered just towards Trauma. He says, but if this is the only way to save your daughter,
Trauma smokes, and he blows it out. I'm not gonna put my daughter in some kind of machine. I'm not gonna help this thing out any more than I already have.
Machine looks at the table and nods slowly.
But it's important that it doesn't know that we aren't cooperating.
Machine nods quickly at that to Kamiko. I agree. We might have to keep up the facade.
We cannot let that exoskeleton get in the wrong hands. It needs to be destroyed quietly.
Kumiko smiles. I've already taken care of that.
How?
I sent one of my men over to the warehouse. He's bringing a manual explosive. He has instructions that, under certain circumstances, he is to destroy it. Rather than destroying it outright, I prefer to use it as leverage. If I die, it gets destroyed. If he doesn't hear from me within 24 hours, every day it gets destroyed. If I send him a message that includes a certain phrase, it gets destroyed. If the warehouse is invaded, it gets destroyed.
And if he dies before it is able to be destroyed...
She shrugs. Well, I don't know how that would occur, but I suppose that is a weakness. Of course, I could send him the message to destroy it now, but that would eliminate any leverage we have. And it would send a clear message to this entity that we are opposing it. I would prefer to be out of the country when that happens.
Unless we leak the location to both Takeda and Watanabe, they will fight over it and likely it will be destroyed anyway.
I disagree. They will not destroy it.
But it might look like it is being destroyed. They come, they attack, your man blows it up.
Or he fails and one of them takes it.
That's my concern. I prefer that it just get destroyed outright. Anything that happens, that entity is going to know about through a communication device that someone's holding. There's no way to keep it ignorant other than using paper only. And she shrugs. I don't think that letting Watanabe or Takeda get their hands on it is a good idea.
I do not disagree that they should not get it. If you wish to keep it out there, and he looks to Trauma and he says, know that I believe this thing will force whoever it is to put your daughter's brain in that thing. I'm certain it would rather do it without a fight, but eventually it will come to that. If the thing is not there, it can't do it.
On the other hand, if the exoskeleton is gone, and it can't put Trauma's daughter inside of it, does this entity strike you as particularly stable and forgiving? His daughter is in the city, and she's vulnerable. I suspect it would strike out in revenge.
Yang looks over to Trauma. Perhaps.
Trauma smokes a cigarette. We have to play its game.
Kumiko nods. We play, and we take the advantages that we find.
It comes down to it, I'm not going to let her get taken into that thing. Even if it kills me.
Machine nods too, looks over to Yin. Play its game for now, right?
She's been looking down, shifting uncomfortably in her seat. And you can see she's trying to make herself small again. If we are to oppose the entity, if we are to attempt to stop its plans and attempting to get its other half, attempting to take Trauma's daughter. She looks up to Machine, back to Hira. Once it discovers that we are against it, if we cannot destroy the entity, or at least eliminate every single one of Daybreak Syndicate's agents, I want you to drag me back here and shoot me in the head.
If we fail, I doubt it will be that easy.
Then at least put a shotgun to my fucking skull and blow my brains out. I do not inspire this.
Machine squeezes her hand tighter and maybe we should have a code word or something where we all meet back here if something goes wrong.
Kumiko nods in approval to that. Something you can slip into a conversation or a message. Something that this entity wouldn't block or recognize.
I need a drink. What kind of a drink?
What did you say? I'm having a
Sake.
little bit of connection issues on my end. What were you saying there, Rogue? Sorry.
I said, some kind of drink. I need a drink. What's a good drink?
Irish car bomb.
I need a car bomb.
If I said to you that I need a car bomb, what do you think this thing would think?
Probably nothing at all. It's a fucking tin can. Just told you it doesn't understand humanity, doesn't it? Probably thinks we're making a morbid joke.
It understands it well enough to think that we can't operate on our own, that we need to be controlled, that the illusion of freedom is better than freedom itself.
Yeah, It is crafty. It's probably studied every reaction and every social media post that's ever been made about human reactions.
Kumiko shakes her head, but still, she looks at you two. I really think it doesn't understand.
Of course it doesn't. What the fuck would it think I would do when I saw them? Rejoice?
It thinks you would be cowed. She snorts.
Yin grits her teeth. She holds the machine's hand, squeezes hard. Looks over to Kumiko. You can sit there, stand there, whatever. You can say things about the AI because you've not had to literally suffer under the hands of it. But you can chortle and say it's just a tin can. It doesn't know humanity, but it knows our weaknesses at least. And I'm only doing this because of you, machine. Otherwise, I would just obey.
He nods, looking straight at Yin and not looking away from her. I failed you already once. It's not gonna fucking happen again.
I'll be dead otherwise, so she shrugs a bit. It won't matter then who failed who.
I guess we'll both be in hell.
I guess. Hopefully together. Probably not.
Fine. Irish car bombs. What the hell is an Irish car bomb?
You probably refer to it as the terrible gaijin drink.
How about just a message that says, anybody up for a drink?
That's probably better.
Sounds good.
Sure.
I think Japan is in our immediate future. There may be things we want to do beforehand, but I suggest that within the next day or two, we all be prepared.
Yang looks to his sister and Machine. He says, I think you should go ahead of us.
Yin shakes her head. The reason we came back here is to, well, get into Takeda and kill Uncle, not to head back to Japan.
He looks to Kumiko and then back to his sister and he says, I do not care about that.
Should we go ahead on that?
Kumiko cocks her head to one side and she thinks for a minute. I think for the first time in 15 years, that thought had completely escaped my mind.
In fact, I have reached out to Hirota. He just lets that sit there for a moment.
Yin turns her head back to her brother. You've contacted him.
Yes. If the man selling noodles across the street can deliver the message.
Why?
Let me ask you. With 2 megacorps at our side, would we better be able to fight this AI?
Kumiko clenches her fists. What would keep this AI from merely offering his services to your former father, she says in air quotes.
If there's one thing our former father, and he looks back to her, is completely set on, is not bending and not giving power. He is smart enough to realize what this thing is and what it could do. I have also invited Mr. Sachs.
Machine's gonna look at Yin.
She looks down. I don't think he's going to make it.
Why is that?
Because the entities already sent forces out to deal with Sax. They've had a long feud. I think she actually gets up from her seat. I think we need to operate as normal.
As you say that, Ian, the camera starts zooming out. It zooms out till it reaches a familiar club on the other side of the stacks. An old Asian gentleman enters the club. Hunched over, he walks up. A well-dressed man in a suit confronts him. Yes. Who are you looking for? He bows. Hiroyuki's to me. I have a message. And he kind of opens the napkin. A Mr. Sachs. The man in the suit gives him a quizzical look. Wait here. He goes away for a bit and eventually comes back. Follow me. The older Asian man and the well-dressed man climb a set of stairs, then reaching Mr. Sachs' office. Mr. Sachs gets up. Yes, how may I help you? The older Asian man walks across, bows deeply, and hands the napkin to Mr. Sachs. He bows again. Mr. Sachs raises an eyebrow as the older Asian man leaves the premises. Mr. Sachs looks at the napkin, reads the message, smiles. The brother, eh? He pulls out his compad, turns it off, looks at his men in the room, signals with his fingers rotating in the air. They start packing up. As they're headed out, as they're headed down the stairs, they hear commotion down below and the sound of gunfire. Mr. Sachs pauses. His guard jumps in front of him. Mr. Sachs starts retreating back. And the camera pans out of there, flies across Icarus, back to the Untitled, to what Yin was saying. Go ahead, Yin.
She gets up from her chair and looks at the rest. I think that we should proceed as planned. She'll look down to Machine. Mr. Sachs is already compromised. We have a mission to do. I already have plans on how to get information from Decay. I will operate as such.
Yang steps forward and slams his hand down on the table. Chiako! We cannot grovel at this thing's feet. Don't you want to rise up and punish it for what it's done? If it wants Sax dead, then he should be alive. Anything this thing wants, we must foil it.
She looks to Hiro. Still doesn't look him in the eye. Still looking down. I don't know how. Hiro. No matter what, unless we destroy it. We're dead anyway.
I would rather die fighting.
To kill this thing, we have to understand it. To understand it, I think we have to find the other entity.
He looks to Kumiko. Don't you think that Mr. Sachs could help us do that? If he's dead, then it doesn't help us at all. We need allies.
She waves her hand. I have no opinion, one way or the other, using Sachs. If he's available, she nods. That's fine. And she bites her lip. You know, if there were some means of helping you two, a megacorp might be able to at least work in that direction, if you could trust the person in charge of it.
And operate on us again. She points to her face. This is what the operation did to me. I had to watch Dean go through this shit. I had to go through this shit. I don't want to go through it again and again and again.
I don't think it's reversible, but what if we could find a way to cut you off from this thing, so that it couldn't torture you?
Machine stands up and kind of puts a hand on Yen's elbow, like he's trying to support her up, and he looks over to Yang and nods. I'm all for fighting God, but if this thing can snap its fingers and just shut her off and me off, we need to find out what it's capable of, how easily it can take us out. Maybe find out what kind of implants are inside us. I'm not afraid of fighting it, though.
I know it can track us. And outside of this Faraday cage, I have a constant link to cyberspace. There's always a hum in the back of my mind.
Damn it, I don't even know if we have signal locators implanted in our bodies.
I'm sure I do.
Yang just sighs. Trauma, could you do scans on them or something? To see foreign bodies?
And he looks at Yang, looks at them, and they are foreign bodies, Yang. More than half of them's fucking metal. If there was any way of blocking any kind of connection at that facility where I'm treating Kumiko's employee, maybe I could take a look. But I'm a doctor. I'm not a cyberneticist.
What we need is a scientist. Or an engineer. And she looks at Hiro, like the one that we've got at the warehouse.
He nods. That is not a bad idea. I still believe we need to do something to protect Sax.
I'm all for it. Trauma stands up and throws his bag over his shoulder.
Protecting Sax is most likely going to be open hostilities.
Not if we're obscured. It can make assumptions. If it can't identify us, it can't do shit. It still needs our help to get what it needs anyway.
Maybe I just like Mr. Sax.
It doesn't know what we know. It doesn't know what we've discussed. If we were just dropping by to have a discussion with him and he were under attack and we assisted, that would just be a misunderstanding.
I think you should find the Daring Enforcement Agency. I think they would be a great asset, especially if Sax is dead.
Machine looks at Yen and did you already send him a warning?
She shakes her head. No.
Maybe it's not too late. Maybe they'll think we're going there to warn him or something when really we'll help Sax out.
She clenches her teeth. They said they could call. They allowed me that mercy. That's all.
Well, then call him.
She nods, getting up from her seat, and she makes her way outside and saying anything.
Machine will follow her too.
As soon as you step outside, the hum of cyberspace fills your mind's eye again. Traffic information flowing through it.
She holds her head in kind of a shock, not expecting a bombardment of information. She presses against the wall, holding herself against it, holding herself up as she clutches the side of her head before shaking it off, standing back up straight and patching into Sax's phone, or at least attempting to.
You hear the line ring for a bit before it's picked up. As soon as it picks up and you hear his voice, yes, you can hear gunfire in the background. Who's this?
It's Chiako.
And you see there's a pause for a moment. Yin, where have you been? Are you the cause of this? Did you give me up?
I didn't give you up. Not on purpose. I'm sorry, Mr. Sax. That entity, it got me.
Daybreak. Daybreak got to you?
Yes, it got the technology. It's in my head now.
They implanted you.
And much more.
Are you in Icarus?
I am.
Are you with Daybreak, Yin? Think carefully before you answer that question. Are you with them or against them? Think about it. And he cuts the line.
She turns to see Machine there. There's a look of distress on her face.
Did Machine hear that? Like, hear them talking?
You would have heard a one-sided conversation, everything that Yin was saying.
And he kind of looks. He's looking towards her, like you know, definitely waiting for her to tell him.
She hurries inside, grabbing Machine's arm, pulling him. She looks to the rest of them, panicked. There's gunfire at Mr. Sex's club. They found him.
Yeah, Yang looks to them and he's like, I'm going. Come with me if you want.
Yin, see she hesitates, gripping Machine hard. Finally, she just sighs. Fuck it. If you can promise to kill me, I'm down with this.
He looks to you and he says, if that is what you want.
I don't want to be trapped in cyberspace forever. So yes. But fine. I'll go against them. Against my better judgment.
Machine squeezes her arm and pulls her towards him, to face him, and says, you and I, we're not going out like that.
She shakes her head a bit. I'm scared, Machine.
He looks around at everybody for a moment, and with all of us together, we can take this thing down.
We can try, but we should go now.
I could. Kumiko looks down at her phone. Send men. It's possible they could get there before we do.
Anything that could help.
I'll call in some of my contacts, see if they can come too. We need to go now. She just turns around, makes her way out.
Yang is already heading towards the door.
You guys race out, jump into Trauma's car. Trauma peels out onto the street, leaving the Untitled behind, racing towards Mr. Sax's club. Kumiko makes her call to the Dragon Gang members. Somewhere else in Icarus, the Dragon Gang members start mobilizing and load out and head out towards Mr. Sax's office. Yin reaches out to her gang in the stacks. Ramses picks up, hears her voice, and you start seeing the... 1 minute. What's their gang called? God damn it.
It's the AI.
No, it's not the AI. AI is like blocking my mind. Yeah.
There is
Cryptics.
no gang.
Yes, the cryptics.
The Cryptics start mobilizing, and Ramses leads them out of the stacks, heading towards Mr. Sax's office. As the forces are converging on Mr. Sax's office, the building seems to be burning. There seems to be gunfire all over the place. There are shots of Mr. Sax, his back against the wall, shooting around the corner at the oncoming forces of the Daybreak Syndicate. And as pandemonium is breaking loose on that end of Icarus, an old Asian gentleman is showed into the offices. up top a building that is familiar to both Chiako, Kumiko, and Hiro. The enforcer walks up. A messenger for you, sir. The bald Asian gentleman turns around, immaculate suit, immaculate tie. His aide, a half-breed Korean, takes off his war mask and looks at the old Asian gentleman and the enforcer. The old Asian gentleman walks forward. A message for you from Takeda Hiroyuki. The utterance of the name causes the Korean to swiftly take out his blade and pierce the heart of the old Asian gentleman. He picks up the napkin, looks at it, and hands it to Urota Takeda. He reads the message, smiles, and with that, the screen fades to black.
Draw me into your machinations. Fuck you guys.